Hey folks, Mark Levin here. Now, before we dive into today's episode, I want to talk about something truly valuable, protecting your financial future with gold. It's called diversification. Now, for that, I only trust Advantage Gold. They're the real deal with 5-star service and a sterling reputation. So give them a call today. Call Advantage Gold at 800-900-8000. Tell them Mark Levin sent you. Trust me, you'll thank yourself in the future. Now let's get to the show. Results may vary. Consult with your financial professional.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
I think if she can get across her economic plan and how it would turn around the tide for middle class and the working class here in North Carolina, I think that is the one piece of her platform she needs to really explain.
I mean, minor piece of her platform that she needs to explain. I mean, the one piece of her platform that she needs to explain. That's a supporter of Kamala Harris at the North Carolina stop yesterday. A supporter who was like, oh, the one thing is actually the single biggest thing to most people. But other than that, yeah, you know, great. Happy Friday. Brian Mudd in for the great one, Mark Levin. Mark had every intention on being here with you this evening, and he took a turn for the worse this morning. Like literally, he's had this awful knee injury, and he twisted the knee, again this morning while he was working. And so Mark is dealing with a lot right now. Prayers for Mark, well wishes to Mark. He could use them all. Let him be well this weekend. And yes, he has absolutely every intention of being back with you on Monday. Brian Mudd, my handle at Brian Mudd Radio on social. You can catch the Brian Mudd Show on, wherever you get your podcasts, home station WJNO in West Palm Beach. And one of the things that I think we need to do is kind of take a step back and breathe. So I'm going to inform you informationally, arm you informationally, as I'm inclined to do. There are always two sides to stories and one side of facts, but as Faith Hill might sing, just breathe a little bit. The election season is a marathon, and somewhere along the way, you got to hydrate, right? I mean, you can't just go full out without taking a moment to breathe a little bit, bring the heart rate down a little bit, hydrate, and then go out there and win the race, right? So we're going to do some of that as well. One of the ways that I am going to arm you with information and kind of put things back in perspective is by starting with some ideas about damage control for those who are concerned about the state of the race. Perspective on why Donald Trump, as of this very moment, is still positioned to win. And then how we can go get this thing won. So let's talk a little bit about damage control. The date was October 7th, 2016. October 7th heretofore will always be remembered as the horrific attack on the Jewish people by Hamas. The worst attack on Jews since the Holocaust. But before last October 7th, you go back to October 7th, 2016. You're probably thinking, I don't remember anything about that day. I mean, other than it would have been, let's see, it's October 2016 presidential election. That was the day that the race was over. That was the day that if you tuned into any of the godless, soulless, slanderous news media, the election was over. That was the day that if you listened to the Republican establishment, the race was over. October 7th of 2016 was a day that Hillary Clinton had a national point advantage over Donald Trump of 4.7 points. Already large, right? And then the WAPO did it. The WAPO did it. They dropped the bomb, the October surprise that they had in store for Donald Trump. It was the infamous Access Hollywood tape. Remember this? Very unflattering situation for the future president. Something he ended up apologizing for even. At that moment, you had most people in this country believing the race was over. Except, for the actual rank and file voter. One of the best summaries of what happened that particular day was actually done by Rolling Stone after the fact. Great synopsis. So I'm going to walk you back to a Rolling Stone article that was done after the election. They said October 7th, 2016 was the day that Hillary Clinton appeared to win the presidential election. She was ahead in the polls in every contested state. Twice the field offices as Donald Trump. Twice the cash on hand. How often do you hear about, oh, look at how much money Kamala has. Look at Trump. Look at how much she raised after the debate. Look at Trump. Trump's a lot closer on money right now than he was against Hillary around the same time. A lot closer. I mean, if we're going to talk about campaign cash. Continuing. She had been blanketing the airwaves with ads and was on her way to being endorsed by 95% of all newspaper editorial boards. Which, just as an aside, you think about this for a moment. You talk about what a joke newspaper editorial boards are. These people that take themselves very seriously. They're the only people that take themselves seriously anymore. I mean, no, who else is going to the newspaper editorial board going, I really didn't know who was going to vote for president, but since you guys did, 95% of all editorial boards and newspapers 8 years ago endorsed Clinton. How'd that work out? How relevant are they 8 years later, do you think? Anyway, continuing. And then at 4:05 p.m. Eastern Time, the Access Hollywood tape dropped. Journalist set to work writing his, being Trump's, political obituary. Surely no candidate would survive such a scandal. And yet. So that frames everything pretty well. It wasn't just the willing journalistic community, your godless, soulless, and slanderous news media that was busy writing Trump's political obit. You had a bunch of political pundits. I mean, if you listen to any of the mainstream pundits on that particular evening, it was over. The race was done. In fact, if you go back and you check a lot of the news articles from that time, glass ceiling this, you know how the godless, soulless, slanderous news media will pick, the talking point. The glass ceiling is going to be broken. That's when it really just launched. It's going to happen. It's done. So it was over. The race was over. And many weak-kneed Republicans began running for the exits. You'll remember this well, but you might not have remembered the moment it happened. It was that day that Senator John McCain unendorsed Donald Trump. McCain pulled his support publicly from Donald Trump. It was on that day that then House Speaker Paul Ryan publicly pulled his support from Donald Trump. And in fact, the then RNC party chair, Reince Priebus, remember that guy? Reince Priebus. The funny thing was, Reince Priebus ended up on Trump's team for about the first 6 months. Hilarious. Chief of staff. I mean, pretty, you want to talk about somebody who was just, hey, which way is the wind blowing here? So Reince Priebus attempted to pressure Donald Trump to get out of the race. Tried to get him out of the race that day. We were a month and a day 1 month, 1 day away from Election Day. People already voting in a lot of places. Think about this. You've got the party chair trying to get him out of the race. You've got former Republican presidential candidate publicly coming out and saying, can't get behind this guy. The House Speaker in the same party washing his hands of him. And I got to let you know publicly, too, that I do not stand for Donald Trump. No. And remember, Clinton was already being shown with a nearly 5-point average lead in the polls before this all happened. I mean, he was done, right? It was over. The narrative was so strong, you might have been convinced that was it too. I remember a lot of conversations that final month up to Election Day, kind of working through a lot of the information and trying to explain informationally why it was that Trump was not done and that he actually was positioned to win. My point is this, just at this moment, Donald Trump is in a enormously better position today than he was on that day 8 years ago when he went on to win the president. I mean, vastly improved position. No matter what you thought happened during the debate, no matter what you think of any of the dynamics that are in play, the hacks, the moderators, whatever, the pundits that might have you psyched out from time to time if you listen to them. Now, look, the news media establishment obviously is not any more objective or honest than they were 8 years ago. I mean, ABC News, the way they moderated the debate is Exhibit A in that respect. But one thing they are is far more cautious than they were 8 years ago. This is interesting, and this can also be a takeaway for you. For example, yeah, you have the Washington Post spitting out a bunch of headlines about, Kamala still being the second coming and Trump being the devil and the like. But when they're being serious about some analysis, a WAPO headline that followed the presidential debate, Harris dominated Trump in the debate, but tight race is still ahead. And in the story, they said this, still, this was but one moment in a campaign in which so many voters seemed locked into their choice. For all the upheaval of the past 2 months and for all that Trump has said and done, including his felony convictions and personal attacks on Harris, the 2024 election could hardly be closer. For Democrats, the mere fact that they are back in the race has been a morale boost. But there's a warning from past elections that continues to give them pause. In both 2016 and 2020, Trump outperformed the polls. In his first campaign, that was enough to win. In 2020, it wasn't. Now, I mean, this in so many ways is classic, right? For the godless souls, slanderous news media, of which the Washington Post is front and center in that media establishment. They have the audacity, but also just it's hilarious. They want to talk about the personal attacks on Harris. For Trump's felony convictions and his personal attacks on Harris. As Trump pointed out on Tuesday night, these people, she has demonized him to such an extent that somebody went out and tried to kill him. They want to talk about Trump's personal attacks on Harris? Harris equates Trump to Hitler? The Democrat establishment routinely identifies him with Hitler? He is within an inch of being assassinated? And still the Washington Post wants to talk about the attacks on Harris. But their point is on point. I'm going to pick up there next. I'm Brian Mudd, in for the great one.
Mark Levin.
The cracks in our economy are widening by the day. We've got a labor market that's cooling faster than expected. Unemployment jumped to the highest since the end of 2021. The market could be in free fall any day as investors panic over a potential recession. Now, some bank stocks are getting hammered as fears of a downturn grow. Even the Fed is talking about rate cuts to prop things up. In uncertain times like these, you need a solid plan for your wealth. That's where gold comes in. It's been the ultimate safe haven for as long as we've used money. And when it comes to gold, I trust Advantage Gold. They're a top-rated American gold company and can help you protect your hard-earned money. Call Advantage Gold now at 800-900-8000 for a free gold investment kit and to see if you qualify for $1,000 in free silver. Don't wait. Call 800-900-8000 today. That's 800-900-8000. Tell them Mark Levin sent you. That's 800-900-8000. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional.
We will move forward because ours is a fight for the future and it is a fight for freedom. Like the freedom to vote, the freedom to be safe from gun violence, the freedom to breathe clean air and drink clean water, and the freedom to love who you love openly and with pride.
If you were doing parodies, you couldn't do better than just her actual material. It's like a mix between a bad Braveheart impersonation and... I don't know what to say. Net clean air and clean water because Trump wants to poison your water and air and I like puppies and people and I mean there's not she's just reaching. It's like grasping at straw. Where is that teleprompter? God help me, please. Oh wait, I said the G word. I don't really mean that. I mean it is hilarious how little there is actually behind anything she says. Like today, she had a campaign stop in Pennsylvania. It was hilarious. She took one reporter question. By the way, her campaign is out there today. Brian Mudd in for Mark Levin, by the way. Mark is going to be back with us on Monday. But she took one reporter question. It was a layup. About how do you feel in Pennsylvania? Well, yeah, there are a lot of people in Pennsylvania. And... they need to be heard, and I'm here to hear them. What? And then her campaign runs out. Well, see, Trump did a presser in California today, but she took reporter questions. She took one layup reporter question and couldn't talk her way out of the layup. There's nothing there. But anyway, walking you through the evolution of damage control and where we really do stand in this race, as a lot of perceptions have been pointed in one direction since Tuesday night's debate, whatever your particular opinion was about it. The narrative has been very strong that Kamala dominated and that she's got the momentum again. And they're trying to make you feel as though this race is heading away and that the end is nigh. Walked you back to October 7th, 2016. Hillary Clinton up in the polls nationally by about 5 points. The Access Hollywood tape drops. John McCain swears off Donald Trump. House Speaker Paul Ryan swears off Donald Trump. Reince Priebus tries to get the party chair, tries to get him to drop out of the race a month and a day away from Election Day. And the rest is history, right? But the news media, even your godless souls and slanderous news media, try as they might to position their desired candidate in the best possible light. They're aware that this is anything but a layup. And I'm going to walk you through that next. Brian Mudd in for the great one, Mark Levin.
This is Mark Levin with an urgent message. We are living in grave and dark economic times that are going to get worse. We just saw an abysmal jobs report while unemployment shot up to the highest level since the end of 2021. Meanwhile, the stock market looks like a gamble. Many banks are getting crushed as recession fears mount. The S&P Banks Index fell 2.4% in a single day. That's a lot. Regional banks fell nearly 3%. That's even more. These are bad signs. Even the Fed is talking about rate cuts. You need to protect your wealth. That's where diversification and gold comes in. It's been a bedrock of wealth preservation for centuries. And the best company I know of is Advantage Gold. Their experts can help you protect your savings from economic chaos. Call now, 800-900-8000 for a free gold investment kit and see if you qualify for $1,000 in free silver. That's 800-900-8000. Don't wait. Call now. Tell them Mark Levin sent you. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional.
The establishment's worst nightmare. Mark Levin. Call in now. 877-381-3811.
Vice President Kamala Harris has spent more time in Pennsylvania than any other battleground this campaign, and it's a must win. And yesterday in North Carolina, while campaigning there, she made clear that having another presidential debate, she thinks, will help her chances here in the Commonwealth, which polls show is a neck-and-neck tied race. Although former President Trump says he doesn't need another debate because, well, he won anyway. In their first post-debate campaign stops, Harris and her running mate Tim Walz openly mocked former President Trump's debate performance.
Yeah, maybe that wasn't the best idea. Maybe mocking Trump's debate performance isn't the best idea they have. Maybe providing a little bit more substance would be a better idea. And I'll explain exactly why that is the case informationally momentarily. Brian Mudd in for Mark Levin. Mark is going to be back with us on Monday. He did want to be with us this evening. Had a rough day, worse injury on the already injured knee and leg. But do have some good news for you. You do not have to miss Mark this weekend. We are going to have all new Life, Liberty, and Levin's both tomorrow night and Sunday night. So 8 o'clock Eastern, both times. Remember, tune in live. And even if you do, go ahead and hit the thing up on your DVR. Make sure you're always recording Life, Liberty, and Levin. So 8 o'clock, Saturday and Sunday, Fox News Channel. So Saturday, you've got Victor Davis Hanson and economist Stephen Moore joining the great one. And on Sunday for Life, Liberty, and Levin, you've got Pete Hegseth and Charles Payne that will be with Mark. Then you'll have him again on Monday. All right, so Donald Trump has historically been a master of damage control. And to the extent that any damage may have been done to his campaign, and that's a huge if, following Tuesday night's debate, consider this. Trump was running 3.6% ahead of where he was the day the Access Hollywood tape was dropped on October 7th of 2016. The day that the Republican establishment ran away from him, including the head of the party trying to get him out of the race. All that's going on. That October surprise that was supposed to be the final thing to get Trump out once and for all. Trump heading into Tuesday night's debate, 3.6% ahead of where he was in that particular day. And that's a tease for where we're going a little bit later in the show, because the news, as we are wrapping up this week, probably different than what you think in terms of momentum and trends. So the bottom line is, current situation, no matter what happened on that debate stage, would be eminently better than what it was back then when he won the presidential election. But here's the single biggest thing. What the debate was mostly about. Since Tuesday, I've heard everything. I've heard, all the anger, the frustration about the moderators, which is absolutely valid. I've heard frustration about Trump people feeling like he missed opportunities and just all of it, right? But here's the single biggest thing. The debate was not actually about Donald Trump. What is your opinion of Donald Trump today? What was your opinion of Donald Trump on Monday? What was your opinion of Donald Trump 7 years ago today? Has it changed? There is no more well-defined presidential candidate in modern American history than Donald Trump. People know who he is. People know what he's about. People know what he has done. And you know how you were going to vote. 96% of this country did prior to that debate. What was that debate actually about? The debate was about Kamala Harris and her effort to attempt to define herself for the casual voters, to try to redefine herself for these slightly more informed voters who are aware that her voting record most closely aligned with the burn, that know that she has been an abject failure within this administration. Perhaps the most important question was whether she was able to do it. And look, I mean, we're not going to know until the dust settles on everything, right? But consider this. So I started with the Washington Post. And let me take you to another leftist news organization, Reuters. Headline to the Reuters story: some undecided voters not convinced by Harris after debate with Trump. The revealing story goes like this. Reuters interviewed 10 people who were still unsure how they were going to vote in the November 5 election before they watched the debate. 6 said afterward they would now vote for Trump or were leaning toward backing him. 3 said they would now back Harris. 1 was still unsure how he would vote. Well, shut the front door. You mean to tell me, despite the widely held belief that Trump was just waxed Tuesday by your mainstream news media, by your godless, soulless, slanderous news media, by the pundits, but whatever, that it was possible for a Reuters panel of undecided voters that they had been following to break 2-1 for Trump after the debate? Boy, that doesn't fit the narrative, does it? As the story goes on to say, Harris and Trump are in a tight race, and the election will likely be decided by just tens of thousands of votes in a handful of battleground states, many of whom are swing states, like the undecided voters who spoke to Reuters. Although the sample size was small, the responses suggested Harris might need to provide more detailed policy proposals to win over voters who have yet to make up their minds. You think? 5 said they found Harris vague during the more than 90-minute debate on how she would improve the U.S. economy and deal with the high cost of living, a top concern for voters. The encounter was particularly important for Harris, with a weekend New York Times Siena College opinion poll showing that more than a quarter of likely voters feel they do not know enough about her, in contrast to the well-known Trump. Ding, ding, ding. The Trump converts said they trusted him more on the economy, even though all said they did not like him as a person. They said their personal financial situation had been better when he was president. Quoting a panelist here, "I still don't know what she is for," said Mark Kaddish, 61, an entrepreneur in Florida. There was no real meat and bones for her plans. Article goes on to say 4 of the voters are women, 6 are men, 8 are white, 2 are black. Now look at that. The Reuters panel was no its. We don't have any theys in the panel. Wonder how the they would have gone. All have voted for Democratic and Republican candidates in the past. Okay. Right. Here's the single most important point in all this. It goes back to even the clip played to start the show. One of her supporters in North Carolina, the one thing, if she could only, come out with like a legitimate economic plan, if she could just do that. Yeah, minor details, right? It's one of the messages I left you with right before the debate on Tuesday night. One of my sayings: you can lie to people about policy, and those who are inclined to believe you, they will. You can't lie to people about what is or isn't in their wallet, because they know. You know what is or isn't in your wallet at any given time. And this is the single biggest reason. There are a bunch that I could give you, and there are many that I'm going to give you throughout the course of this show. But there is one concept that you can take to heart, and it's that she can sit there and play the game of sunshine and lollipops, and I'm for this and I'm for that, and yay, and all the fluff stuff, right? She can sit there and play that game all day long. And Donald Trump, look, he's the crazy angry man and this and that. You can lie to people about policy, and those who are inclined to believe you will. So those people at her rallies, yeah, bad Orangeman. But you can't lie to people about what is or isn't in their wallet because they know. And the more important thing is they know what was in their wallet when Donald Trump was in office. Notice in that Reuters panel, not one of them liked Donald Trump. None of them did. But 6 of the 9 that came out of the debate with a decision on who they were going to vote for broke Trump. Why? As the one person went on to say, he was better off financially when Trump was president, right? So that's the difference here. That's the tiebreaker here. For the people that are truly like, I don't know which way I'm going to go, which is kind of hard to imagine, but nevertheless, you have certainty in Donald Trump, and life was better. And you've got this, whatever it is, as she is trying to reinvent herself with no substance. And people have lived 4 really rough years under the existing regime. Which one are you going to take a chance on? So just conceptually, that is the single most important concept here that's in play. Now, could Trump have been a heck of a lot more effective in driving that point home in the presidential debate? No doubt. No doubt. But again, it really isn't necessary at a certain level because the debate wasn't about him. It was about her. And because they know he could say whatever, but they know what he brings to the table. You don't have to like Trump to vote for him. And that's one of the other important things here, right? That was one of the reasons we were also told that he had no chance in 2016. Look, least favored candidate ever. Or, it's just, he's never had positive favorability ratings net. Never has. Millions of people who don't like Donald Trump have voted for him in both of the previous elections. What the Reuters focus group showed is that on the issues that matter most, a majority sided with the former and perhaps future president on those issues. On that note, consider this from the same Reuters article and focus group. Robert Wheeler, 48, a security firm executive in Nevada, was leaning toward Harris before the debate. He now says if the election were held tomorrow, he would vote for Trump, largely because he thought Harris didn't provide clarity on her policies. Quoting him, I felt like the whole debate was Kamala Harris telling me why not to vote for Donald Trump instead of why she's the right candidate. Imagine that, right? Kamala Harris most certainly did not win the debate in Robert Wheeler's mind, right? The hardest thing for any of us to do is to put ourselves in someone else's shoes. I know who I'm going to vote for. Nothing that happened in that debate, or frankly, nothing that will happen between here and Election Day, has the possibility of changing my vote. You know who you're going to vote for. Ditto, right? But for the Mark Caddishes and Robert Wheelers of the world, they didn't know. They didn't know. And now they do. For Donald Trump, she had an opportunity, given everything she hasn't done up to this point. Her failure as a vice president, her whack job leftist voting record when she was in the Senate and before that in California, had an opportunity. You have that first impression, and it may be the only impression since she runs away from everything, which, by the way, is also smart for Trump not necessarily to do another debate. Don't give her another platform on that scale to let her fill in the blanks here. It's a very smart strategic thing for him not to grant her another opportunity because she failed to fill in the blanks, the people who were looking for meat from her. Everybody wants to focus on Trump. Kamala didn't win over anybody. This side of Taylor Swift, because that vote was really in doubt. Taylor, she did her homework. I'm sure she really took in that debate. It's like, man, for a moment I was leaning Trump, but I'm going to go Kamala. The bottom line is that with some of the early returns, maybe the perception, the style of Harris, more people liked. But where it actually mattered with the people that are trying to figure out their minds, there's no doubt that Donald Trump came out on top. I'm Brian Mudd, in for the great one.
Mark Levin.
The cracks in our economy are widening by the day. We've got a labor market that's cooling faster than expected. Unemployment jumped to the highest since the end of 2021. The market could be in free fall any day as investors panic over a potential recession. Now, some bank stocks are getting hammered as fears of a downturn grow. Even the Fed is talking about rate cuts to prop things up. In uncertain times like these, you need a solid plan for your wealth. That's where gold comes in. It's been the ultimate safe haven for as long as we've used money. And when it comes to gold, I trust Advantage Gold. They're a top-rated American gold company and can help you protect your hard-earned money. Call Advantage Gold now at 800-900-8000 for a free gold investment kit and to see if you qualify for $1,000 in free silver. Don't wait. Call 800-900-8000 today. That's 800-900-8000. Tell them Mark Levin sent you. That's 800-900-8000. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional.
You know, and I called it at the beginning of the debate. It was the same old show. Same old tired playbook we've heard for years.
She wants to talk about the same old tired playbook. That same old tired line. Have you come across a speech of hers, if you've been paying attention, where she has not used that line? You could go back to when she became the presumptive Democrat nominee and first got in the trail. Her first speech, she was using that line. She doesn't, not only is there nothing behind her words, but she doesn't have any new words even. She had like one playbook to play. One play in her playbook to play. And she's still playing it every stop, everywhere she goes. All right, let's go to Josh in Nashville. Josh, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much. Yeah, and I heard you mention earlier that you already heard about this a ton. So if I'm beating a dead horse, just let me know. But those moderators who pretty much were calling Trump out all the time and not calling out Kamala, I found kind of interesting. More or less, I do wish she wouldn't have, thrown so many things out there that were so callable right then, but I guess he's going to do what he's going to do.
No doubt. I mean, how do you feel right now? What's your feeling about the race, level of confidence, that type of thing?
Honestly, I mean, I was hoping to see Trump do something that was meaningful. I mean, he just did the typical, and I get his policies, and I get the fact that the economy was strong, but I just wanted him to not get up there and start throwing stuff out there and start kind of, lying about things and yelling about things, and he just wouldn't do it.
I get it. And it's part of the reason why, informationally, I'm walking you through what actually happened, where the debate mattered. Because I know a lot of people are disappointed with Trump, but it really wasn't about Trump. It was about Harris. And the moderators going after Trump actually did her a disservice because there's no substance there. Be right back. Brian Mudd in for the great one, Mark Levin.
This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
I'm also announcing that as part of our additional tax cuts, we will end all taxes on overtime.
Over under on how long? Day, 2 days before Kamala goes. And now I am going to propose that we do not have taxes on overtime. We'll see how long that one goes before she tries to adopt that as part of her non-existent economic plan, the extent of which she has an economic plan that has been just literally copied and pasted from Joe Biden's campaign website. Brian Mudd in for Mark Levin. Mark did have every intention of being here with you this evening. While working this morning, his already severely injured knee took a literal turn for the worse. And so we need to be praying for him. Send him all the encouragement you can. And he has every intention on being here on Monday with you yet again. He's gone through one heck of a week. And speaking of a heck of a week, it's been one of those in the grand scheme of election cycles that has been highly emotional. We are down to crunch time, just over 50 days away from Election Day. You have people voting in certain parts of the country. You got the presidential debate. And the contrast has never been as great as it is right now. We've never had, remember I did this analysis, brought it to you not all that long ago. The difference on policy between Harris and Trump, and we can do this because we know what her voting record was in the United States Senate against Donald Trump's presidency. She is 86% to the left of Donald Trump. Like if you're trying to figure out, here's a 100-point scale, where does she fit on it compared to Trump? 86% to the left of Trump. We have never had that kind of dichotomy between the two presidential candidates. So yes, the republic is at stake. Yes, this election is that important. Yes, a lot of people took a look at Trump's performance and went, oh boy, on Tuesday night. I've heard it ever since. I've heard from some folks throughout the first hour who seemingly appreciated the pragmatism that I'm bringing to you as I began by painting the picture of where we were on October 7th of 2016, when Donald Trump was down nearly 5 points in the polls nationally, and the Access Hollywood tape dropped. Immediately thereafter, John McCain publicly denounced Trump. Then House Speaker Paul Ryan publicly denounced Trump. And you had the RNC chair at the time, Reince Priebus, trying to get Trump to drop out of the race a month and a day before the election, before Trump goes on to win the presidential election. Trump is in a much better position, to say the least. Brought you information about one of the focus groups of the left, the Reuters focus group, and how by a 2-1 margin, their undecided voters broke for Trump over Harris coming out of that debate. And the reason? The debate wasn't actually about Trump. It's one of the things when we are watching that, and especially if you are a Trump supporter, you want your guy to perform well. You want your team, right? It's like teams. You want your team to perform well. You want go out there and win this thing. When in reality, your vote was never in question. And what you were looking for, compared to the very few people out there going, golly gee willikers, I just don't know. I could go Trump or I could go Harris, which again, to me is still bewildering, but nevertheless exists. They weren't looking for the same thing you were. They already have their opinion about Trump. They wanted the juice out of Harris. And to that end, as I mentioned at the end of last hour, the moderators, I mean, as absurd as they were, including David Muir of good hair, still has good hair. Trump pointed out his good hair today, but said he lost all respect for him. With reason. Yes, it was a sham what they did in moderating that debate. But in their own way, they actually did a disservice to Harris by not pressing her and getting real answers out of her. Maybe they wouldn't have come, but because they didn't, some people are like, yeah, there's nothing there. I know that my life was better with Trump, so I'm going with him. So on that note, I want to talk about the 4%. The 4%. Because we do have signs and growing signs that the potential impact of the presidential debate was not as cut and dried as the majority of viewers, definitely the majority of pundits, and maybe even you perceived it to be. And that's because, again, the debate was not about you or me. It wasn't about the Swifties. And by the way, everybody wants to talk about on the left, oh, Taylor Swift and the endorsement. She did her homework, you know. There was a moment where she had actually considered going for Trump, but she really was diligent in her homework and shocking that she came out for hair. There's actually a Swifties for Trump thing that is trending right now. You have all kinds of Swifties that are out there singing for Trump. So that's become a thing. It's not all as one-sided as you might think. But again, all these people knew how they were going to vote. You knew how you were going to vote. The debate was about the 4%, because that is roughly the percentage of people who went into Tuesday night's debate without a preferred presidential candidate. Now, last hour was talking about the Reuters people. Just a quick refresh on that. 10 people, according to Reuters, who are still unsure how they were going to vote in the November 5 election before the debate. 6 said afterward they would vote either for Trump or were leaning toward backing him. 3 said they would back Harris. 1 still unsure how he would vote. And the reason they said is that they broke 2-1 for Trump, that their personal financial situation had been better when he was president. And so the bottom line was that they were waiting to see if Kamala could convince them of something better, that she had better policies. And all she did, in their eyes, attack Trump. Now, enter the New York Times. The New York Times had their own panel, and they've weighed in. In their story entitled, "Pundits Said Harris Won the Debate, Undecided Voters Weren't So Sure." Again, this is the New York Times. Quoting the Times, "For weeks, undecided voters have been asking for more substance. Some Americans might need more convincing. Immediate reaction from political analysts favored Ms. Harris, whose attacks appeared to rattle Mr. Trump. But not all voters, especially those undecided few who could sway the election, were effusive about the vice president's performance. In interviews with undecided voters, many of whom the Times has interviewed regularly over the last several months, acknowledged that Harris seemed more presidential than Trump. And they said she laid out a sweeping vision to fix some of the country's most stubborn problems. But they also said she did not seem much different from Mr. Biden. And they wanted change. And most of all, they wanted to hear and didn't the fine print. Going into the debate, Harris faced the challenge that Trump did not, telling the country what they should expect to hear from her presidency. Okay, interesting, right? And then we walk into some of the reactions that the New York Times outlined in this article from their panel. So you go to a Keila Miller, quoting again, 34, who lives in Milwaukee, grew intrigued by Harris. Ms. Miller said that she had voted Democratic in the past presidential elections, but decided to stop voting altogether about a year ago. Her own situation and that of other black women in Milwaukee had not improved, she said. On Tuesday, she felt nudged unexpectedly toward Trump. Quoting her, "Trump's pitch was a little more convincing than hers, I guess. I'm leaning more on his facts than her vision. When Trump was in office, not going to lie, I was living way better. I've never been so down as in the past 4 years. It's been so hard for me." Again, what I mentioned the first hour, what I mentioned going into Tuesday night's debate. You can lie to people about policy, or you can just say it's going to be sunshine and lollipops, and you're attached to policy that has hurt people, and you don't have credibility on the issue, so you really better prove that you've got something that will be different. But you can lie to people about policy, and those who are inclined to believe you will. But you can't lie to people about what is or isn't in their wallet, because they know. Here is a black woman, young black woman, previously voted Democrats exclusively, got so fed up about a year ago she was just not going to vote. Now is voting for Trump. And why? Because of the debate. Boy, that doesn't fit any of the narratives, does it? There is no more reliable voting bloc in this country for Democrats than black women. And here's one that, coming out of the debate, is going for Trump. Continuing with the New York Times and their panel and their focus group. In southern Arizona, Jason Henderson, a defense contractor and retired soldier, had been resigned to skipping the election, unable to stomach either candidate. Like Ms. Miller, though, he came away from the debate leaning tenuously toward the Republican nominee. Quoting him, "Trump had the more commanding presentation, There was nothing done by Harris that made me think she's better in any way. Yet again. So about the 4%ers. In total, the New York Times had only one panelist, a nurse in Charlotte, North Carolina, who was won over by Harris during the debate. All right, so Reuters, their panel, 2-1 towards Trump. For the people who decided in the Times, in their panel, the majority on Trump. So what we're seeing as the potential impact from Tuesday night's historic debate has set in and is permeating and starting to come out in some polling results as well and all that. The trend is that the debate did not bend the race the way that instantly your pundits, your godless, soulless, slanderous news media types thought it seemed. It's not that at all. And I'll pick up there next. Brian Mudd in for the great one.
Mark Levin.
I'm going to let you in on a little wireless trick that can cut your cell phone bill in half every single month. Other major carriers want you to believe you need unlimited data so they can overcharge you. Here's the fact. Most of you are buying way more data than you'll ever need and you'll ever use. Pure Talk, my cell phone company, only charges you for data you actually want. Listen to this. For $25 a month, you can get unlimited talk, text, and 5 gigs of data plus mobile hotspot. Do you know what you can do with 5 gigs of data? You can browse the internet for 135 hours, stream 1,000 songs, or watch 10 hours of video. Folks, stop overpaying for wireless. Get 5G coverage with Pure Talk. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin. Switching is painless. It's easy. There's no contract, no activation fee. You can even keep your phone and your number. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin, puretalk.com/Levin, and you'll save an additional 50% off your first month on top of all the other savings when you sign up with Pure Talk.
Because we've done 2 debates and because they were successful, there will be no third debate.
You know what? And that is actually a smart thing. Very smart thing. Brian Mudd in for Mark Levin, because Kamala Harris missed her opportunity. She missed her moment. A lot of people, when Trump's been saying the past couple of days, I won the debate, and the polls say this, a lot of people are like, even on his side, I'm not so sure about that, right? I mean, you know, and what polls is he talking about and everything? Well, actually, if you take a look at the only people that could have been moved by Tuesday night's debate, if you take a look at the focus groups, and yes, we do have some polling data, I'm going to get to that in just a bit, that supports what Trump is saying. With the undecided voters, it was never about Trump, it was about Harris. For 96% of voters, the debate was a little more than political theater. You know, people rooting for their respective teams, right? But for 4% of voters, it was different. The debate, like a preseason audition to be the starting quarterback. You got Trump, the established veteran, the former Super Bowl winner. Might have fumbled a snap or two. May have had an interception along the way. May have missed some wide open receivers that he didn't spot from the pocket. But what you know is that when it's game time, the man can put points on the board and the man can win, even if it's ugly getting there at times, right? You know what Trump is, what he does. The far more important audition, the challenger. How would Kamala perform in her quarterback audition? Was there more upside that you could find by starting her instead? And the consensus perception, as more focus group feedback from undecided voters rolls in, is that rather than demonstrating her skills, rather than illustrating on the field how she would use her playbook to win, she instead just kind of stood in the pocket talking about how good her playbook was and, yeah, it'll be great. And he's really bad. Who would you start in that scenario? The quarterback that you've already won with? Or the one that talks about how bad the quarterback you've already won with is? And that seems to effectively be what we're hearing from those in the 4%. The only people for which that debate actually mattered. And so now we turn from the focus group panelists to some polling data for you. The very first post-debate swing state poll. The first one that's out with a complete post-debate sample is the Insider Advantage poll. They took a accredited sample before and after the debate. Now, what do you think happened in Michigan? It was a Michigan poll. What do you think the difference before the debate, after the debate, according to this one pollster? What do you think it was? Trump gained 3 points. Gained 3 points in Michigan, according to Insider Advantage. Again, their poll taken last month before the debate. Poll they just released yesterday. There's also another poll out there today, complete post sample that has it tied in Michigan. The Insider Advantage poll has Trump up 1 in Michigan. So yeah, their same poll before the debate, Harris was up 2. Now Trump up 1. What does that tell you about the perception with the undecided voters in Michigan? Now, you have had a couple national pollsters that have come out with completely post-debate sample polls that showed Kamala gain a little bit of a kiss from the debate. You had the Reuters Ipsos and Morning Consult polls. They both show Harris up 5 most recently. And that is a 2-point boost from prior to the debate and 1 point in the other poll. But here's the thing about those. I mean, one, they're national polls. It's what happens in the swing states that matters. But more than that, even if they both prove true at this moment, I mean, that's looking to be her absolute ceiling. And beyond that, Trump would still be polling a heck of a lot better than he was 8 years ago today. I mean, massively improved over 4 years ago. But he's still, even if those polls were true, the national temperature check, still be better off in the average of the polls we're seeing right now than he was 8 years ago when he went on to win. Perspective is key in all these things. And at this point, it's what happens with the 4%ers. It's what happens, not just with the 4%ers, but the 4%ers in the swing states that'll decide this election. And what we are seeing in the immediate aftermath, whether you're taking a look at these focus group panelists, if you're taking a look at accredited swing state polling that is starting to come in, it's pointing in the same direction. Undecided voters breaking for Trump, not because Trump had a great performance in their mind, not because they like Trump in their mind, but because Kamala Harris had nothing to offer them. And so there is perception and reality. And the perception, Harris waxed Trump on the debate stage. The reality for undecided voters, she put up nothing in that debate. Brian Mudd in for Mark Levin.
I'm going to let you in on a little wireless trick that can cut your cell phone bill in half every single month. Other major carriers want you to believe you need unlimited data so they can overcharge you. Here's the fact. Most of you are buying way more data than you'll ever need and you'll ever use. Pure Talk, my cell phone company, only charges you for data you actually want. Listen to this. For $25 a month, you can get unlimited talk, text, and 5 gigs of data plus mobile hotspot. Do you know what you can do with 5 gigs of data? You can browse the internet for 135 hours, stream 1,000 songs, or watch 10 hours of video. Folks, stop overpaying for wireless. Get 5G coverage with Pure Talk. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin. Switching is painless. It's easy. There's no contract, no activation fee. You can even keep your phone and your number. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin, puretalk.com/Levin, and you'll save an additional 50% off your first month on top of all the other savings when you sign up with Pure Talk.
Mark Levin, the most passionate conservative on radio. Talk with him now at 877-381-3811.
recording of 911 calls even show residents are reporting that the migrants are walking off with the town's geese. They're taking the geese. You know where the geese are? In the park, in the lake. And even walking off with their pets. My dog's been taken.
I'm sorry. Little Haitian animal control that's going on in Ohio. So, I mean, Trump hasn't walked away from the dogs and the cats from the debate. But one of the things that is true and was overlooked as you had, oh my gosh, David Mueller of Good Hair and Lindsay Davis freaking out about that. Oh, it's so not true. And we contacted the mayor and this and that. The underlying issues there, the underlying issues about what's going on in the community. Notice that they had no interest in being intellectually honest about the situation, to where you do have a community, Springfield, Ohio, that is overrun. Half of the town's population, half that size, they have migrants that have been brought in. And if you take a look at the conditions on the ground, yeah, there are some accounts of some weird things with animals here and there, but whatever is or isn't the norm, the underlying condition remains, and the quality of life for people is much worse. But yes, we're just very interested in, we talked to the mayor and the dogs and the cats are not being eaten. There was a cat that was eaten. It was in a different part of Ohio, and it actually was a natural born citizen that was responsible for that one. But anyway, a little Haitian animal control that Trump is still discussing. Now, speaking of discussing things, you are hoping to hear from the great one this evening. Instead, you're hearing from me. It is an honor and a pleasure to be here with you. Always is. Brian Mudd, and you can catch me at Brian Mudd Radio. Socially, you can catch my podcast, The Brian Mudd Show, wherever you get your podcast. And I host The Brian Mudd Show on weekday mornings from my home station, WJNO in West Palm Beach. You don't have to wait until Monday. Great one is going to be back on Monday, but you don't have to wait that long to catch them. All new content, Life, Liberty, and Levin this weekend. So 8 o'clock Eastern, both Saturday and Sunday. Always set your DVR. Even if you catch it live, hit the DVR in case, you want to go back and watch something again, or maybe you intend to watch it live and you get distracted instead. You don't have to miss anything. And Saturday, 8 o'clock Eastern, Fox News Channel, his guests, Victor Davis Hanson and economist Stephen Moore. And on Sunday, Life, Liberty, and Levin, you have Pete Hegseth and Charles Payne. So again, you'll have him tomorrow, you'll have him Sunday, and then he'll be back with you on Monday. In the meantime, he's had a brutal week, and prayers for him and well wishes for Mark. He had another incident with his already severely injured leg today, which is why he was not able to join you. He wanted to, but again, he's going to be back with you through the weekend and on Monday. All right, so what I've been walking you through is some historical perspective about where Trump stood at what was perceived to be the end of his presidential run, which was October 7th of 2016, just a month and a day before he won the presidential election. Where we were heading into Tuesday night's debate, comparatively, and also the reality on the ground with the only people the debate actually mattered for, the 4%-ish of people out there that are still going, gee, I really don't know. I've been hanging out with Encino, man. I just got out from under the rock, and I see these two people. There's a Trump and there's a Harris. I could go either way. I don't really understand these people either, but they do exist. They're a thing. And the fact of the matter is, even when they were hanging out with Encino, man, they still knew who Donald Trump was. But this Kamala Harris, they're trying to figure her out still. And she didn't sell them. And so, Trump, he posted yesterday that there will not be a third debate. He said, when a prize fighter loses a fight, the first words out of his mouth are, I want a rematch. Kamala should focus on what she should have done during the last almost 4-year period. There will be no third debate. Now, you did have Fox News catch up with him on the trail today in California and kind of got him to hedge. You're like, what would it take to do another debate? And he made a comment about, I don't need to do another debate. I've won. Things are good. All the stuff he said. And then He said, I don't know, maybe if I were in a better mood or a different mood or something. And so now you have some conversation about that. But the fact of the matter is, he doesn't need to do another debate. First thing, you know that there's never been a presidential candidate that's done as many presidential debates as Donald Trump. He's done 7. Never has there been a more vetted presidential candidate before the American people. And everybody has an opinion about him anyway. There's nothing in it for Trump, but there is something for Harris. And the reason, in reality, I mean, yeah, some folks think it might just be posturing, look strong because I want another debate, and Trump will look weak because he doesn't want another debate. In actuality, it's what the information I've been sharing with you. All of the data about these undecided voters shows that she missed her moment. She missed the mark by going after Trump, not having any substance there. And in the absence of substance, people are like, shoot, I'm not going to, just trust that this thing's going to work out, because obviously going Biden-Harris didn't work out. So I'm going to go back to Trump. My life was better. That's the consensus that we're hearing. I've got more information on this, by the way, as well. I'm not even done informationally helping fill in the blanks here about how things are probably better than you might have thought coming out of that debate. Let's go to Steve in Connecticut. Steve, welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir. Good evening.
Good to have you.
So thank you. So I work for the Department of Defense. I'm retired Navy, and I was on travel with a colleague. We were stopping at the commissary to grab some snacks the day after the debate. And we were talking about the debate afterwards. The commissary, for those that don't know, is a Department of Defense-run grocery store. So they have a baseline. We're supposed to save 23.7% from a local market basket of the area around us. But the point being, we were talking about the debate and made similar point to what you said to him. She talked about all these things that she wants to do grand idea-wise, but didn't explain a single policy of how to pay for it. She sounds like inflation's going to go through the roof. I don't know how anyone does anything but votes with their wallet. Like the grocery store is enough to kill people. And he commented, he's a left-leaning colleague. He said, he repeated the media narrative of, she's going to go after the price gougers and set some policies. And I said, Ken, it's not price gouging CEOs. Look at this grocery store we were just in. It's Department of Defense run. So that means the CEO, I guess, is President Biden, and our prices were comparable to out in town. Some things cost the same. Some things generate the savings, collective savings of 20%. And he stopped and paused. I said, so maybe, just maybe, hear me out, it's the cost of the goods. And we went through the whole supply chain of farm to shipping to distribution and the cost of getting it from A to B, plus wages and workers. He was like dumbfounded that there could have been another reason that it wasn't a greedy CEO, because their profit margins stayed between 2% and 4%. It just, my mind was blown that, because he's an intelligent man, he was just so willing to parrot one of these media narratives because they just throw it out so often.
Good for you. Good for you making him think about this deal. Did you make any ground with him?
I feel like I did, but we'll see when we get closer. I mean, he stopped, he thought about it, and he accepted the cost of groceries driven by supply chain costs and wages for workers. But I don't know if that was enough to move the needle. But at least it got him thinking.
Yeah, no, for sure, Steve. Appreciate the call. Appreciate your service. May God bless you and all who have served. And a couple things about the economic plan. When the going after price gouging, and she's got those ads all over the place right now. She's gonna take on the price gouging evil companies. When I took a look, to the extent that you can try to analyze Kamalanomics, because there isn't any real plan there, but just the concept that she laid out, how she would target from a government point of governance price controls. You would have to do this through the FTC. You'd have to do this through the Federal Trade Commission. Like, if we're going to take her at face value, or we're going to view this as a serious policy proposal. So you'd have to have the Federal Trade Commission that would then determine what the appropriate prices could be that companies could charge for items. Now, already you know where this is going. I'm not going to go through the whole macroeconomic thing about how absurd on its face this is. But what I did do is, with government equivalents, at that level where you have the federal government, in our case, the FTC, whatever it would look like in individual countries, what would the comps be? What are the countries who are doing that type of thing right now? Let me give you the names of the countries that are effectively doing in real time what Kamala Harris has proposed with her price controls. Cuba. How's that working now? It's Venezuela. Might notice a trend here. Chad. You know, why would we want to continue as the world's leading superpower when we could live it up the way that folks are in Chad? You know what I'm saying? Benin. They've got price controls at this level. One of my favorite to pronounce of this group, Burkina Faso. Burkina Faso is doing the Harris plan right now. Oh, look at that. Haiti is doing price controls at the level that Kamala Harris has proposed. Man, that's some sweet action right there. Oh, wait, that hasn't worked so well. At least for the geese, anyway. Not working so well for the geese in Springfield, Ohio. Does not look like. Guinea. Guinea is getting in on some of that sweet price control action. They're making sure that in Guinea, their companies are told what they can charge for things. Couple other economic powerhouses here. Ethiopia. I know that you don't think about, world class economies without thinking about Ethiopians, right? And Niger. Niger is in that mix too. That is the company that Kamalanomics keeps. Cuba, Venezuela, Chad, Benin, Burkina Faso, Haiti, Guinea, Ethiopia, Niger. Good times. Brian Mudd in for the great one.
Mark Levin.
I'm going to let you in on a little wireless trick that can cut your cell phone bill in half every single month. Other major carriers want you to believe you need unlimited data so they can overcharge you. Here's the fact. Most of you are buying way more data than you'll ever need and you'll ever use. Pure Talk, my cell phone company, only charges you for data you actually want. Listen to this. For $25 a month, you can get unlimited talk, text, and 5 gigs of data plus mobile hotspot. Do you know what you can do with 5 gigs of data? You can browse the internet for 135 hours, stream 1,000 songs, or watch 10 hours of video. Folks, stop overpaying for wireless. Get 5G coverage with Pure Talk. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin. Switching is painless. It's easy. There's no contract, no activation fee. You can even keep your phone and your number. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin, puretalk.com/Levin, and you'll save an additional 50% off your first month on top of all the other savings when you sign up with Pure Talk.
Haiti's gang violence and unrest prompted hundreds of thousands of Haitians to leave their country over the past 4 years. During that time, at least 15,000 of them came to Springfield, Ohio, under the temporary protected status program that the Biden-Harris administration extended. Now, the local healthcare system is overwhelmed by people who need vaccinations and basic care, while schools are struggling to teach students who don't speak English. Road safety also a concern. A Haitian immigrant without a driver's license hit a school bus last year, killing an 11-year-old boy and injuring about 24 other children.
But the real important thing to know about what's going on in Springfield is that we fact-checked this, Mr. Trump, and we talked to the mayor, and the dogs and the cats are not in peril. Although I wonder if that necessarily is true. The geese, that could be a questionable situation. By the way, and this is something else that's worth pointing out. I love the hypocrisy of the left. Do you know that those Canadian geese are federally protected? You know that if you kill one of them, that is a federal offense? The fact-check moderators didn't get into that because there are actually accounts of geese that have met their end Don't know the underlying circumstances to it, but there is documentation that, some of these Canadian geese gone missing. Federal offense. Where are the environmentalists? Where are the very concerned moderators at ABC and the godless, soulless, and slanderous news media? But the more important thing is, Trump does often exaggerate situations to illustrate a larger point. There's a crisis in Springfield. That's what's really happening. Well, you just heard Christina Coleman in that report. That is the real story about Springfield, Ohio. But all you heard is, oh, it's not the dogs and cats being eaten there. That's unconfirmed. They really do care about the people, don't they? These ABC News moderators, the mainstream godless, soulless, and slanderous news media, they really are on your side, aren't they? Trying to get just the facts out there. Give a rip about anybody other than themselves and their own political agendas. Let's go to Ralph in Central Florida. Ralph, go quickly.
Thank you for taking my call.
You bet.
I've talked to several people on talk radio over the last couple of years. I used to run Proudtex for labor. I'm an operating engineer for 55 years in South Florida. And I'm telling you, I'm no longer a Democrat because I've seen the handwriting on the wall. I'm a Trump supporter. But, my political background tells me this. If you can't kill somebody and you've rigged 2 elections and you don't know if you can rig a third one and you can't put somebody in jail like they do in Venezuela and South America, there's only one thing you can do. Declare martial law and have no election.
Yeah, Ralph, you're a good example of people waking up. Brian Mudd in for Mark Levin.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Destination Home reports that in 2023, 830 more households experienced homelessness than the year before. The data also shows that for every 1 household placed in stable housing, another 1.7 households became homeless. Under the county's 5-year community plan to end homelessness, 15,810 people have been placed in housing since 2020. The goal is to have 20,000 people housed by the end of 2025.
Winning, right? I don't know about you, but I'm sure those people that are homeless are tired of winning. We have had so much success and so much progress. And the new way forward is just to take the Bidenomics plan and add some price controls to it. And then you got Kamalanomics, and it's going to be great. And really, a 70% increase in homelessness. But man, it's just starting to work is what it is. By the way, that is a local report out of KTVU in San Jose on Santa Clara. 70% increase in homelessness under the Biden-Harris administration. But no, really, this is great. And so this gets back to the broader thing. You can lie to people about policy, and those who are inclined to believe you are going to believe you. You can't lie to people about what is or isn't in their wallet because they know. You can't lie to people about having or not having a roof over their head. They know. And this is why Tuesday night's debate didn't work out quite the way your godless, soulless, and slanderous news media thought it did. It's why the absurd moderation, the fix being in with ABC News, didn't work out quite the way that they had intended. Because the very few people who are actually open to a different opinion, they didn't get what they wanted out of Kamala. It wasn't about going after Trump. Brian Mudd in for Mark Levin. He did have every intention on being here with you this evening. He ended up taking a turn for the worse. His knee that is already really injured, more so earlier today. Really unfortunate, everything he's going through. So your prayers for him, your well wishes, they are all very much appreciated. Now, the good news is we are going to have Life, Liberty, and Levin's Saturday and Sunday. You're also going to have Mark on Monday as well. So you can look forward to that. Brian Mudd with you. And what I've been trying to do is put in perspective in what has been a very emotional week for many, what is a real critical point in this election cycle, as people are already starting to vote in certain states, as we're barely over 50 days away from Election Day now. Kind of this marathon that you had the climax reached recently with the debate. A lot of people that are hoping that we have Donald Trump back as president of the United States, wondering if hope was lost on Tuesday night. Walking you through where we stood in 2016, how much worse his situation looked even closer to the election than we are today. Walking through the focus groups from organizations like Reuters and the New York Times, some of the perspective on those from the Washington Post, all of which are saying, you know what, actually the undecided voters that we've been taking a look at, the folks in our panel group, they're not saying what we thought they would say. They're actually more often than not breaking for Trump. Some of the initial polling data that we're starting to get in a key swing state like Michigan that shows that Trump is performing better now in Michigan than he did before the debate. So here's the thing. Trump has an undefeated political season going, and Harris has peaked in the polls. Walk you through a little something here. Trump is 3-0 with just over 7 weeks in this election to go. Now, we're only a week and a game into the NFL schedule, so only Buffalo has a 2-0 record at the moment. But when it comes to 3-0 starts to an NFL season, really predictive of how well that season is going to go. Give you an idea. In the Super Bowl era, what percentage of NFL teams that have started 3-0 have gone on to make the playoffs? What percentage 3-0 teams go on to the postseason? Answer is 74%. 74%. And independent of Tuesday night's debate, might be about the odds Trump currently has of becoming the next president of the United States because of his previously undefeated regular season and the initial postseason run here. What specifically am I talking about? So I'm trying to put everything in perspective and bring this all into the current moment. You think about Donald Trump and every imaginable obstacle he's overcome, starting with the Russian collusion hoax in 2016. Remember how this primary season was supposed to be a real tough one for him? He's going to have DeSantis and, some tough. He eviscerated all of the Republican challengers just like that, right? Turned out not to be any competition in the primary season. And then Trump did what? He got into that first debate. He's in there against the incumbent president of the United States. Knocked him out of the race. And then the lawfare campaign. The lawfare campaign that was waged against him in this cycle. And so you did have last week those final two pieces of the lawfare campaign. I mean, that any of this is still outstanding is absolutely absurd. I mean, these cases are still active at all are absurd. But to the extent that they could factor into the final 2 months of this presidential campaign, they were punted until after Election Day. First, you had D.C. Judge Chuck In say that she wasn't going to pay consideration to the election cycle, but then she did in the reboot of the January 6th case, set a deadline of November 7th, a couple days after Election Day for the next steps in the case. Then, of course, you had last Friday, New York State Judge Juan Merchan, who decided to push back sentencing in the criminal case from September 18th to November 26th. And so that put an end once and for all to the lawfare campaign and the extent that it could be a distraction. How many pundits, how many of the legal experts said that this would all come to fruition, especially after he was convicted in the New York criminal case? How many people said that, hey, you know what, Merchan's going to put him in jail and it's going to happen before Election Day? Take a look at how much of that there has been all throughout this year. And he got through that too. There's no telling what might be thrown at Trump next. I mean, they have tried to kill him. So, I mean, pretty hard to throw anything harder than has already been thrown at him. But Trump is battle tested, and he's undefeated this season. And he's facing someone who has never won so much as a single state in a primary election. And this is one of the important things. You know, for those who are Trump supporters, and you take a look at the debate Tuesday night, and you wish Trump would have done things differently in places, you're upset about the moderators, you're concerned that maybe stylistically Kamala performed well enough that it would have convinced a lot of people that she's the person. I talked about how she has failed to sell undecided voters because it was pretty obvious she just had a bunch of rehearsed lines and everything, and she didn't have any substance there. But the one thing that is overlooked, Democrats never really have chosen her, have they? You know, when she ran for president, she was out of the race before we got to Iowa. She's never won a vote, a meaningful vote. She never won a state in a primary election. Her record in the Senate aligned with Bernie Sanders. She's part of a failed administration to the extent that people knew her before she was the Democrats' nominee. They loathed her, the lowest approval ratings for a vice president we had on record. It's real easy to kind of forget that and look past that. But if you're somebody who is genuinely in the case of an undecided mindset, someone who does not like Donald Trump, and you're going to give her a chance, think about everything for that person that has to be overcome for them to go, yeah, you know what I need to be doing is voting for her. And so last week I mentioned this, that Harris has probably peaked and that Trump is positioned to win. And the reasons I mentioned at the time were these. I said Kamala Harris has probably peaked in the polls because that's what we've seen with Trump's two challengers previously at this stage of the cycle. It's also because the current polls reflected the bounce that Kamala Harris would have received via the DNC, which was the smallest in DNC history. And using the national polling samples, her bounce was only 0.3%. The average boost for a Democrat in the modern political era had been 2 points coming out of the DNC. She got 0.3. What that said is she had been so propped up by the media from the time she got in the race that the DNC didn't really matter. She was going to be as pumped up as she possibly could be. The only way that she would be able to boost her support by getting that 4% of undecided voters to think that she had something to offer. So last week I mentioned that Trump was running a healthy 5.4% ahead of where he had been 4 years ago at that time. 2.1% ahead of where he was running 8 years ago when he won. And so I mentioned that by any objective measure at that point, Trump was the best positioned to win that he had ever been on that particular date. So let's move this thing forward. Based on where we are sitting right now as we are wrapping up this week, it does look like she has hit her peak. If you take a look at the Real Clear Politics polling average, Trump is now running 5.9 points ahead of where he was 4 years ago. A half point better than last week at this time. And he's still running about a point higher than he was 8 years ago when he won. So the polls are showing that Harris has peaked. But more than that, if you start taking a look at very specific polls at windows in time, it tells an even more direct story. And I'll bring that to you next. I'm Brian Mudd, in for the great one.
Mark Levin.
People said that I was angry at the debate. Angry. I was angry. And yes, I am angry because he allowed 21 million illegal aliens invading our communities. Many of them are criminals. Many are criminals. I'm angry.
A lot of people are, right? Angry American. Rest in peace, Toby Keith. Now, couple things. A lot of people perceived that he was angry at the debate. But how many people are unhappy with this country? How many people tuned into that debate, people that were genuinely undecided, the 4%ers, and are angry too, and were looking for solutions and didn't get anything from Kamala Harris? So yeah, the polls are showing that Harris has peaked. What you're seeing roll out over the past week and some of the post-debate national polls, this is the peak Harris. But more than that, the polls, if you don't trust them, I get it. I just use them at points of reference, right? We know that they have undersampled Trump consistently. So you just take a look at where were we in 2016 with these same polls? Where were we in 2020? Where are we today? And on that note, take the New York Times, the poll that came out last weekend, the poll that was cited by both Reuters and the New York Times, when they were taking a look at their undecided panelists following the debate and going, holy crap, to the extent that people decided coming out of this debate, they're breaking for Trump. They referenced their own poll from Sunday. In the headline, Trump and Harris neck and neck after summer upheaval, with the line after it said, the survey finds that Donald J. Trump is retaining his support and that on the eve of the debate, voters are unsure they know enough about where Kamala Harris stands. Again, in their poll, a quarter of the country didn't really know enough about her. And they still don't. That was what came out of the debate. She had her moment. They were looking for something from her and they did not get it. They didn't like that she just saying bad orangeman, evil bad orangeman. They wanted substance. So as the toned down headline suggests, Kamala's supporters should be extremely concerned. The reason that she really wants another debate is because they're seeing this data. They're getting this feedback and they're going, holy crap, we need another shot at this. Her strategy to run on good vibes, to run on no serious policy positions, to avoid the media, it's not working. It wasn't working in the debate to just go bad orangeman. And I'm for people and puppies, and I'm going to offer a tax break for small businesses, which, by the way, as a former small business owner myself, one of the things that I think is hilarious, I mean, just how devoid of economic reality she actually is. So, current tax law, you have a $5,000 deduction for small business. She's saying, I want to bring that to $50,000, and that's going to help start more small businesses. What do you actually have to have in order to get the benefit of a tax deduction? You have to have a profit. You know what the hardest thing to do in small business is? Create a profit to get the whole thing going. And with the inflation that we suffer with and everything else, I mean, it is devoid of any kind of reality. So for the actual people that the message is even targeted for, that's going to fall flat too, because they know damn well the whole thing, I need to turn a profit. I can't even take advantage of your tax deduction because I'm not making any money. How does a deduction against profit that isn't being achieved help anybody start a business? And so, I mean, even if you get into, like she provided a detail there, yeah, she's clueless. They have no idea what they're talking about. And people get it. The people that were actually there to be persuaded by this stuff get it. So the problems identified with the undecided voters before the debate, they're the same issues undecided voters have with her after the debate. Only many of them are now like, screw it, done with her. She had her chance. We know that life was better with Trump. I don't like the man, but I'm going with him. And that's instructive. There was one other nugget in the New York Times story that doesn't tell the whole story. The polling, it showed a neck-and-neck race as they described it for the national popular vote. Now, the poll on Sunday showed Trump ahead by 1 point nationally. That happened to be the exact same margin as the Times had Trump up over Harris. When? On the day that Joe Biden dropped out of the presidential race. One of the things that was fascinating as we wait to see what exactly will shake out in the polls post the debate with the national stuff. There is a little bit of an indication. Some of the national polls are moving 1 to 2 points in her direction. But again, it's the swing state stuff that actually matters there. But more instructive, she had lost not just the bounce from the DNC, which was minimal. That entire bounce she got from the moment she became the presumptive nominee and she was propped up, gone. In the New York Times poll, she was back to where she was when Biden dropped out of the race. There's a lot here. I'll bring more of it to you, get some of your thoughts next as well. Brian Mudd in for the great one, Mark Levin.
Mark Levin, a proud conservative. No ifs, ands, or buts. Call in at 877-381-3811.
Kamala Harris kind of proves she's good at getting under your skin, but she didn't say anything, no substance. She dodged the number one question on the minds of the American people. Are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? And she dodged it.
Bingo. That is Congressman Byron Donalds just nailing it. That's exactly what happened, in his opinion, but more importantly, the consensus opinion that we have seen in survey after survey and panel after panel of undecided voters. Now, a couple things that are really important as we are going to kind of put this together here for you. Donald Trump is still positioned to win this election. Give you one more data point in all this here. I think it's the most instructive yet. In just a moment, Brian Mudd in for Mark Levin. You can catch me at Brian Mudd Radio socially. Check out my podcast, The Brian Mudd Show, wherever you get your podcasts. The host of The Brian Mudd Show weekday mornings on my home station, WJNO in West Palm Beach. Always truly an honor and a pleasure being here with you. Although, honestly, I wish I wasn't tonight. I wish these circumstances were not what they are, with Mark having suffered a really awful injury to his knee, to his leg, and that was aggravated today. He did want to be here with you tonight. The good news is he's going to be with you through the weekend. So Life, Liberty, and Levin, it is going to happen. He'll be with you tomorrow, Saturday, 8 o'clock Eastern, Fox News guest Victor Davis Hanson and Stephen Moore. And Sunday, Life, Liberty, and Levin, again, 8 Eastern, Fox News Channel, guests Pete Hegseth and Charles Payne. So you can set your DVR. Make sure you never miss Life, Liberty, and Levin. And then after you enjoy him Saturday and Sunday, he's back with you Monday. He'll be back with you right here on this show. All right, so to kind of tie up all the information, as I've been trying to informationally and with some historical perspective walk you through what we're seeing having happened after that debate, where we stand in this election cycle as we're getting down to crunch time. So whatever your feelings were coming out of Tuesday night, you can understand what really is going on. If you take a look, the New York Times, their particular poll came out on Sunday. It was pre-debate, but I want to give you an idea of where we were in that moment in time. The same New York Times poll that had Trump up a point heading into Tuesday night's debate nationally. 4 years ago on the same date, Biden was up 8 in that poll. In that same poll, on that same date, 8 years ago, Clinton was up 2. So in a New York Times poll, Trump was running 9 points, 9, ahead of where he was 4 years ago in his narrow loss. He was running 3 points ahead of where he was 8 years ago in his narrow win. You don't need any additional analysis from me or really anybody else to infer what that could mean. For the data that's come in, the best performing data after that debate for Kamala Harris, she got a 2-point kiss. The absolute best, she got a 2-point kiss. That would mean at worst, in real time, Donald Trump is running ahead of where he was 8 years ago when he beat Hillary Clinton. That's where we stand in this presidential race. Donald Trump has this. No matter what his performance was or wasn't on Tuesday, no matter what the moderators were or weren't on Tuesday, no matter what kind of vibes Kamala Harris tried to put out there, not working. Not what a lot of people think it is. Let's go to Susan in upstate New York. Susan, welcome to the show.
Well, Brian, you're a 4-star general in the Levin army, and we're all like, praying and pulling, and we know our leader, the great one, he's going to get through this. But I wanted to say, a few weeks ago, when Donald Trump came out with this brilliant policy, no tax on tips. And then, he also said no tax on Social Security, because with the idea that the incentive to work and that the what this would do for the economy, if all these revenues could be, first of all, not just spent in the economy, but put into savings, because that is not being discussed. When individuals put money in savings, it increases the ability for banks to lend to small businesses. Now, then he doubled down because she came out and copied, no tax on tips when she was in Las Vegas. But she never said no tax on Social Security. And now he doubled down because he's a chess player and said no tax on overtime, because he wants to give incentive to people that work their butts off. And he's a chess player, so now he raised it. And now what is she going to do, that airhead?
Right? I mean, so I was saying, over under what? 1-2 days before she's like, and now I'm going to introduce the no tax on overtime and pretend as though it didn't exist. Susan, thank you for being there. Great call. Great points. And a couple of notes on that. And it's ties into kind of what I was talking about with like the small business deduction. That is kind of absurd on its face for the purpose of which she's advancing her argument. A tax deduction, you can't use that if you don't make money. How, if you're trying to start a small business, is a tax deduction going to help you? It's not possible for you to be helped to start a business you can't start right now by a tax deduction. It's just economic illiterate. Now, when you take a look at Trump's plan in all of these, a lot of people say, they're gimmicks or they're this and that. The worst of it is when you have people, it's going to cost the government so much money. That is economic illiterates as well, because if you take a look at what he's proposed, every one of these policies, it's supply side economics. It's exactly what you talked about. You're incentivizing existing activity. You're incentivizing more work. You're incentivizing more business activity. And the most important thing is it's not costing the federal government a single dollar. Why? Because you haven't earned the money yet. The business hasn't earned the money yet. There is no entitlement by the federal government to your money. There are politicians that have said we're going to confiscate X amount based upon the parameters they set. But the money hasn't even been earned yet. It's impossible for these supply side plans of Donald Trump to cost the federal government a single dollar. But if we have more economic activity, if more jobs are created, if more people are making more money, what's that going to produce? A heck of a lot more tax revenue, right? So it's the same thing with his tax plan. Remember how all the economists said, oh my gosh, it's going to cost the government so much. And oh my gosh, it's going to drive up unemployment. Oh my God, tax cuts for the rich. Well, what we saw, the only people who actually did worse under Trump's tax plan were the people at the very top that couldn't use tax loopholes they used to be able to take advantage of. Everybody else ended up benefiting from it. What did it do? produced more revenue, not less. Why? Because the economy grew at over 3%, which people said could not be done when Trump said he was going to grow the economy at 3% again. He did it. You're exactly right. Great call. All right, let's go to Rich in the very important state of Pennsylvania. Rich, welcome to the show. Are you there, Rich? All right, very important. Maybe he's out voting right now. Hope you are. All right, let's go to Alito in San Diego. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Brian. Brian, I don't know about you, man. I'm getting the same vibe I had in 2016 when James Comey was covering up for Hillary, when Loretta Lynch went on the plane and talked to her husband, Bill Clinton, about their grandkids and all this other stuff. People are seeing this. They're seeing the double standard. I believe that when Election Day is over, they will be so flat on their face, it will be at least a double what he did to Hillary. I'm seeing the same thing. People are sick of looking at this woman and the double standard that they're giving her, and the media is not asking her anything. It's just like with Hillary. And I see it coming, and I believe it's going to be a wipeout.
I think you're exactly right. The wipeout, your lips to God's ears. I'm not ready to. I think it's possible. I do think it's possible because I am a data wonk and an analyst by nature. I could see how that could happen. I appreciate the optimism, but I think you're exactly right in terms of the premise. 2016, so much of this shapes up like 2016, and some of it is, just kind of like on the periphery, and some of the elements of the race. You have two women, you have two former senators, two left-wing former senators from dark blue states that are not representative of the country at large. People that are faking it. Hillary Clinton, and she was the ultimate faker until Kamala Harris, right? Right down to Kamala. Her economic plan, because remember, she never did answer the economic question, the very first question that was asked. Her economic plan was, well, I grew up in a middle-class household. Even that's a lie. She grew up in an affluent family in Canada. It's like, no, not even that. Everything she does is fake. And for people who are really taking a look at this informationally, but again, it gets back to the bigger thing about you can lie to people about policy, and those who are inclined are going to believe you. So she can go to the Democrat base and say sunshine and lollipops, and Trump wants dirty water and dirty air. But in reality, people see through that are potentially persuadable. And on your point about the similarities, so many. It's why I'm doing these comparisons. Okay, here's where we were 4 years ago. We know Trump's got to do better than that. Here's where Trump is against where he was 8 years ago. Oh, look at that. In every single data point, in every single piece of analysis, Trump is doing better today than he was 8 years ago when he became president of the United States. And to that end, yeah, if it breaks a little bit more in his direction, it could be a wipeout. That'd be a great day, great election night for sure. Brian Mudd in for the great one.
Mark Levin.
Kamala Harris is killing the American dream, but with your vote this November, it's going to be the most important election ever in the history of our country. We are going to bring back the American dream bigger, better, and stronger than ever before.
You got it. We're going to do it in 53 days. 53 days. That's when this thing is going to happen. Right now, that man, Donald Trump, is positioned to win. All throughout the course of the show, whole idea was just kind of take a step back. Been a stressful week. This is a super stressful election because of our Republic riding on it. But it's okay. Trump's got this. The debate, if you were worried about his performance, if you've been worried about what you've seen in the godless, soulless, and slanderous news media about the debate and Kamala having out a to October 7th of 2016, when John McCain publicly denounced Donald Trump, when House Speaker Paul Ryan denounced Donald Trump, when RNC Chair Reince Priebus tried to get Trump to drop out of the race a month and a day before Donald Trump won the presidential race. That man is running ahead by every measure of where he was 8 years ago. Today, on October 7th, and on Election Day. We got to do our part. Wanted to set you up so you could feel good heading into this weekend. Some perspective that you might not get elsewhere. And then you come out this weekend and you get the job done. If you're in a state where you can vote, you get out there and you vote. If you're in a position to be a poll worker, go be a poll worker. If you can be a poll watcher, be a poll watcher. Because the one thing none of us want is to wake up on November 6th and go, we could have done something different. It's time to do it now. Enjoy the weekend. Realize that it's all good. Trump's got this. And then go do your part to help make America great again. Speaking of making America great again, Mark Levin. Life, Liberty, and Levin this weekend, Saturday and Sunday at 8 o'clock Eastern, Fox News Channel, and back on Monday. Been a pleasure. Brian Mudd in for Mark Levin.